Welcome back to our mini lecture on education and work and how that impacts your health. So for this particular discussion, we're going to talk about how work affects your health. And we've already talked about unemployment and how that has some pretty dire consequences on mental health and even physical health, right? It increases your risk for cancer and for more so cardiovascular disease and increased blood pressure. And the longer someone's out of work, the more stress that puts on the individual, and that increases their risk for anxiety and depression. And again, how this is all really linked back to that stress hormone, cortisol, and that can negatively impact your health. Nevertheless, we're going to talk about how your job impacts your mental health and your physical health, and it can impact it in a negative way, right? Like when we think of stress, we tend to think of, that's really bad and that's really negative, right? But at the same time, it can benefit your health if you find some kind of purpose in your life, right? If your job is helping you reach a need, some type of need that you have. Okay, well, we'll keep on going. So here is a graphic that was part of that Robert Wood Johnson Foundation report listed for you guys to check out this week. This describes how there are different aspects of your job, such as the actual physical aspect and how that physically can expose you to hazards or risks or chemicals or toxins, fumes, fibers. We'll go into more detail on that. They're the psychosocial aspects of health that can, again, trigger different forms of stress. Now, this model, again, has a little bit more of, or at least the top half, it has a little bit more of a negative spin to it, because there are some positive psychosocial aspects of jobs, such as social support, socialization, a sense of identity. Some people find purpose within their jobs, right? So that could be a different, like a more positive form of stress, right? And so last but not least, your job can also affect the type of resources made available to you, whether that's due to your salary or income or whether it's from benefits. So we only have this one slide on the physical aspects of the job, but what we mean by physical aspects of the job are the ways that there's potential room for injuries. There's a whole area of health and safety termed occupational safety. And this particular branch of, I guess, health is interested in interested in protecting and improving health and safety at the workplace and helping to prevent fatal or disabling traumatic injuries. Keeping in mind that these occupational injuries can be significant and include death and disability, loss of productivity and wages, cost the medical system, and also psychological distress. So again, jobs as well as safety managers who often work, in different careers or different job sites that involve more injury are often interested in identifying how their employees can potentially become injured and how to prevent or control that from occurring. Physical aspects of the job also includes whether or not you've got a more active or a sedentary job. Are you sitting most of the day? Do you get to, take short breaks, get up, move around? What does that look like? What does your job profile look like? If you're working, roughly 8 hours a day, during those 8 hours, are you sitting? Are you standing? Are you walking a good bit? Or, is there any type of physical stress on your body? And how might that impact your physical health? Last but not least, your job can expose you to certain types of toxins and fumes or building materials, weather-related conditions, and even noise. So you've got certain individuals who are working in jobs that are exposed to high levels of noise, and over time that impacts their hearing. You've got individuals that, especially, if you're thinking about this hot Arizona heat, right? Individuals who are working outside or don't have access to central AC, and how that can increase their risk of heat stroke and dehydration. And then other workers are working in environments where there are more fumes, more chemicals, and their workplace safety hazards that result in traumatic injury through uncontrolled transfer of certain forms of energy, whether that's kinetic, electrical, thermal, chemical, or nuclear. Your job can also impact, or the psychosocial aspects of your job can also impact your health. Here are just a list of some of the different ways in which psychosocial aspects of your job can influence, psychosocial aspects of work can influence your health and health outcomes. Your design of tasks. Do you have a heavy workload? Do you get rest breaks? Do you work long hours? Are you engaged in shift work? What do your routines look like? Are they hectic or are they pretty routine? Do they have meaning? Do they utilize your skills? Do they utilize your knowledge? Or are you kind of feeling like you're just lost in the dark at your job? There's your ability to engage in your work decision making, and those with higher levels of decision making tend to have lower job strain, and those with lower tend with lower decision, they might be in a passive job, and that might be a little bit more stressful to them. So there's a mix between, what is your decision of what are you able to do in your job? How are you allowed to contribute, as well as what's demanded of you? Do you have the skill sets to respond to those? Do you have the knowledge to respond to this? Or again, are you feeling somewhat lost in the dark? What is the management style? Are you allowed to participate in decision making? How good is communication in your organization? Are the rules at your workplace family friendly? And what kind of relationship do you have with management? Is it more of this top-down approach, or again, do you have any type of means of helping to create the rules for your organization? Interpersonal relationships at work can affect your health. Do you have relationships in the workplace that help buffer stress? Or do you have relationships in the workplace that just create more stress? Is there a sense of support and help from coworkers and supervisors? And again, are there people within your workplace that you can talk to, you can relate to when you're getting overly stressed out? You can reach out to them, you can connect with them, and in that way, this is discussed in that TED Talk that I've recommended you guys watch. Actually, you're assigned to watch. It can help boost oxytocin, that cuddle chemical that is both a stress hormone, but it's also a hormone that really is known as that cuddle chemical that encourages connection and encourages closeness. So one way in which stress can positively affect you is to prompt you to reach out and better connect with those interpersonal relationships, again, at work and also at home. What are your career concerns? Do you have fears of job insecurity? Is there any opportunity for growth, advancement, or promotion? Or are you kind of stuck at this dead-end job? Are there rapid changes that are occurring in the workplace, and that really gives you a sense of instability in your workplace? How prepared are you for those major changes at the workplace? The environmental conditions are also factored into this. That again is really more of that physical aspect of the job, but a environmental condition that has dangerous physical conditions or negative conditions such as crowding and noise and air pollution can negatively impact your mental and physical well-being. And then also, does your job allow for work-life balance? Have you been able to create within both your job and your time away from the job a sense of balance where you get to engage with family and friends and meaningfully contribute outside of the workplace? Or are you spending most of your time and energy committed to this job? So again, these are just all different ways that some of the ways that your job can influence stress and stress levels. It can also impact spillover. So when one part of your life, and it tends to be thought of as a little bit more negatively, spills over into other aspects of your life. So how your job schedule might impact your time off. How your job conditions and negative spillover impacts your, well, it's not really impacts your type of pay, but how you're paid. If you're working overtime, is that going to show up? Are you being incentivized to work overtime? Are you traveling on the job? Is it enjoyable to travel on the job? Or are you losing that sense of routine and stability because you're always traveling for your job? Lack of job insecurity, your pay, your flexibility, your distance from job to home. So you're spending more time commuting than you could be doing other things. And again, how does this impact your health? So with increased stress, we see increased risk for such negative health outcomes as metabolic syndrome, heart disease, weight gain, hypertension, diabetes, depression, anxiety, and burnout, musculoskeletal disorders, and even injuries. All link back to stress. And again, spillover is just another aspect of which your job may impact your stress levels. Last but not least, and also part of that model that you had seen, are work-related resources and opportunities. So first of all, one of the major benefits of having a job is you get paid. Hurrah, hurrah, we all love getting paid, right? Unless it's a volunteer job. And then there might be some other form of benefit. But your salary impacts your ability to afford the type of housing you live in, whether or not you have a more comfortable lifestyle. Where do you live? Do you live closer to your job? Do you live further away? Can you afford to live closer to your job, or are rent or mortgage costs too expensive, so you have to live further out and commute in? We'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the built environment. Based on your salary, what kind of foods are you able to afford? Also, do you live in an area that has access to fresh foods? Or do you live in something called a food desert, where you live too far, or not too far, but you live a further distance from an outlet that offers fresh food, say a grocery store, right? Or do you have to rely on fast food and corner markets to access your food? Your salary, based on that income level, can afford you the opportunities for healthy ways to de-stress, or unhealthy ways to de-stress. There are, healthy coping mechanisms such as going for a walk, taking an exercise class, engaging in a meditation course. And you don't necessarily have to take a meditation course. You can go on YouTube and find meditation for free. You can find yoga classes for free. You can find Zumba, whatever is your flavor here. You can find that for free. However, there are other opportunities that do cost, and basically finances and money basically gives you that financial freedom to choose what you want to do in order to de-stress. Less healthy coping mechanisms are engaging in prescription drug abuse, over drinking, right? Smoking, basically going outside of yourself to comfort yourself, even overeating, right? Over exercising can be a negative way of de-stressing. So again, it just really, your salary just kind of impacts what your opportunities are for handling stress. But again, there's by no means, if you are lower income, are you void of opportunities that are lower cost as well. Again, like these, some of the free programming that's available to de-stress. It's just easier, and you tend to have a little bit more time and a little bit more autonomy and flexibility with a higher income to engage in those healthier coping strategies. Your salary can also impact your educational opportunities. As you guys remember learning in that last lecture about childhood development, childhood development was largely impacted by parents' income, by also parents' educational attainment. So again, we tend to think of education as an outcome of largely, especially higher education, as an outcome of your income. And so this impacts your ability to pursue certain levels of education without necessarily having to take out a loan. Other benefits of your job can include health insurance if you're working at a medium to large size organization. With the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act, one of the mandates for medium to large size organizations was to ensure health insurance coverage of employees. If there's an organization with 50 or above employees working. Otherwise, the health insurance marketplace was open and people were allowed to kind of create their own health insurance plan by what was available on the health insurance marketplace. Many jobs offer a 401k, so savings for retirement. Does your job have sick leave? Does your job have paid time off? Does your job have maternity and paternity leave? I thought that your textbook was really interesting in this description of maternity and paternity leave, where you can see countries such as, I believe it was Denmark, where they've got, 16 months of paid maternity leave, and I believe paternity leave as well, for parents to get used to being first-time parents, or even just to be used to having a newborn, right? And learning how the family dynamic will operate once there's a new tiny person who really requires all of your time and energy in their waking hours, which are quite a bit. But anyway, these are just some examples of some of the benefits that your jobs offer, or jobs can offer. I'm not saying they all do offer this. And then there are also some other benefits that are that we'll talk about a little bit more in our upcoming lecture on worksite wellness. Again, some careers offer this, others do not. But again, this is just one last of those three aspects. Again, physical, psychosocial, and your resources and opportunity that are afforded you by your job. And in turn, this can affect your mental and physical health and well-being. Okay, well, we are done with this set of slides, and stay tuned. We've got one more little mini lecture for this week.